North Sentinel Island is a pretty odd place. It sits in the Bay of Bengal, and it's home to the Sentinelese tribe. These folks have been living on that island for more than 60,000 years. That's a long time, right? What's really interesting is that the Sentinelese don't have any contact with the outside world. They don't use phones or computers, and they don't care for modern life at all. In fact, they do their best to keep outsiders away. If anyone tries to visit, they get very hostile, and the death of the visitors usually follows. This way of life is rare today. Ordinarily, most people have some connection to the modern world, but not the Sentinelese. They are living just like their ancestors did, without all the changes that come from outside influences. They hunt and gather as their people have done for thousands of years. Because of this, they've kept their traditions, customs, and way of life intact. Their island is like a time capsule of a different era. It shows us how life can be lived differently, away from all the noise of our busy world. It's fascinating to think about what daily life looks like for the Sentinelese. They have their own languages, beliefs, and skills developed over generations. The peace and quiet of their island have allowed them to maintain their unique culture while the world continues to change around them. The Sentinelese have lived on North Sentinel Island for over 60,000 years. That makes them one of the oldest isolated tribes in the world. We know very little about them because no one can study them closely. The island is small, just about 5 miles wide, and it's surrounded by tough coral reefs, making it hard to get close. Even though it's part of India, it feels like a place from a different time. The Sentinelese don't use modern tools. They survive by hunting, fishing, and gathering food from the forest. The first notes about North Sentinel Island go back to the late 1700s when a British sailor saw lights on the shore but didn't step foot on the island. The real first meeting came in 1867 when a shipwreck left some Indian sailors stuck on the island. For 2 days, nothing happened. Maybe the Sentinelese were observing these stranded crew and decided not to act at first. But on the 3rd day, the Sentinelese showed up with bows and arrows and attacked. The sailors got away and were rescued later. This attack wasn't just by chance. The Sentinelese have always protected their home from outsiders. They probably knew that contact with the outside world could mean trouble. In the late 1800s, a British officer named Maurice Fidel Portman led several expeditions to North Sentinel Island. Portman wanted to study the tribe and make peace with them. However, his efforts failed. Then on one trip, Portman decided to take matters into his own hands. He and his team got into the island and captured 6 Sentinelese, a man, a woman, and 4 children, and took them to Port Blair. However, the adults quickly fell ill and died. Although the children were returned to the island, they may have brought diseases back with them. See, being so isolated from the outside world, the Sentinelese had not developed immunity to most of the diseases that were in the outside world, and mere contacts could be fatal. Portman's actions likely deepened the Sentinelese's distrust of outsiders. To them, visitors are not friends but threats to their survival. When India gained independence in 1947, it inherited the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. In 1956, the Indian government declared North Sentinel Island a protected area. No one was allowed to come within 3 nautical miles of the island. This law was meant to protect the Sentinelese from harm and keep their way of life intact. Despite this, researchers and explorers still tried to make contact. In the 1960s and 70s, anthropologist Triloknath Pandit led expeditions to the island. His team left gifts like coconuts, pots, and knives on the beach. The Sentinelese sometimes accepted the gifts but never allowed the visitors to come too close. In the early 1990s, Pandit's team made a breakthrough. During one visit, the Sentinelese came out of the forest to accept coconuts directly from the researchers. This was the closest anyone had come to peaceful interaction with the tribe. Of course, photos of the exchange were shared widely, showing the Sentinelese in a more positive light. However, this progress didn't last long. The Indian government decided that even friendly visits could harm the tribe. In the late 1990s, they banned all contact with the Sentinelese to prevent the spread of diseases and preserve their culture. Despite the ban, North Sentinel Island has not been completely free from outsiders. In 2006, 2 fishermen were killed by the Sentinelese after their boat drifted too close to the island. The Indian Coast Guard tried to recover their bodies but was met with arrows and rocks. The bodies remain on the island, as authorities decided it was too dangerous to retrieve them. In 2018, an American missionary named John Allen Chow illegally traveled to North Sentinel Island to spread Christianity. He believed it was his duty to convert the Sentinelese. On his second visit, the tribe killed him and buried his body. This incident sparked global debate. Some criticized Chow for ignoring the ban and endangering the tribe, while others saw him as a martyr. The Sentinelese's fierce independence has protected them from the fate of other tribes in the Andaman Islands. The Great Andamanese, once a large group of tribes, now number fewer than 60 people. Most have adopted modern ways of life and lost their traditional languages and customs. The Onge, who were forced into settlements, rely on government aid and have seen their health and population decline. The Jarawa, another Andamanese tribe, face constant threats from poachers, tourists, and settlers. A highway running through their territory has brought disease and exploitation, turning their once self-sufficient lifestyle into one of dependency. In contrast, the Sentinelese remain healthy, strong, and independent. Their population, estimated at 50 to 100, has stayed stable, and they continue to live off the land and sea. They survived the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, likely retreating to higher ground before the waves hit. A famous photo taken after the tsunami shows a Sentinelese warrior aiming an arrow at a helicopter, symbolizing their unbroken spirit.